Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm James, that's Katie, and of course, that makes this Circles and Squares, episode number 4. And Kate, welcome back. We're back again. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I've been feeling very nostalgic for memories today. And James,
let me just, what else are you nostalgic for if not memories?
You know what? why are you going to do this to me right off the bat?
I don't know. Anyway, what's up?
Well, a fond memory that I used to think of fondly, but maybe not so much anymore, is let's take you back a couple Christmases ago.
Okay.
And if you remember, the weeks leading up to Christmas, there was a lovely game on the horizon called Bravely Default.
Bravely Default, yeah.
And we had both been bringing it up quite a bit in conversation. And now, unbeknownst to the other person, we were bringing it up to sort of test the waters, see if the other person was interested in, and sort of find out some information, and with the intention of purchasing the game for as a Christmas present.
Right, and that makes total sense. Like, that's what people do, right?
It makes total sense. Now, obviously, both of us are far too clever to assume such a ruse was taking place, and just thought the other person was excited about this new game coming out. So lo and behold, Christmas morning, we're sitting around the tree, and I open a lovely present wrapped by my wonderful brother, and in the box is a copy of Bravely Default.
Yeah. It was a great gift idea, you know.
It was a fantastic gift idea. I thoroughly enjoyed the game when I played it, but I remember opening it, laughing, and saying, "James, would you like to open your gift as well?"
We'll leave what was in that box to everyone's imagination.
Yes.
But it was a very similar Christmas for both of us, I guess. What made you think of that?
Well, I was taking a look at our notes, which obviously we are very genuine on the show, and most of this is just live off the cuff, as you can tell from the amount of weird things that we say, and
like nostalgic for memories.
Yes. Well, okay, we're back to that. That's a thing now. But I noticed in both of our notes, we do kind of do a sort of a generic outline just to kind of be aware of what we're going to be saying and talking about for the show. And I've noticed that we've both put on here, we've been playing Man of Medan.
Yeah. It's like unplanned too. It's just kind of one of those things where, I mean, I knew you had a copy and you were kind of playing it, but I didn't know we'd both kind of plan the same time to do it. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in just a second, but I would like to say if anyone wants to come support the show, we're all over the internet. Just follow us on Twitter at CANDSPod, CNSPod. You can find the links to all of our other accounts and email and everything over there. And get in touch. We'd like to hear it and see what you think of the show so far. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Leave us a rating, help us grow. But let's talk about the show here. We're going to be talking about the games we've been playing, as always, to start the show. Second segment's going to be a news roundup. There's actually some pretty big news today. The Unreal Engine 5 trailer just dropped, and that's huge because it was on PS5, but we'll talk about that in a bit. And then finally, I think this is going to be an interesting third segment. We're going to be going through our predictions for PlayStation for the rest of the year, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a wager about what the winner or the most accurate predictor will get. But let's get into that later. For now, Kate, let's talk about Man of Medan, actually. How about we start with that, since we've both been playing? Now, this is one of those choose your own adventure kind of, choices go far, allegedly type of games. Similar to like Heavy Rain or Detroit Become Human or any of the Telltale game stuff like that. From Supermassive. Now, their most recent game aside from Man of Medan was Until Dawn. Have you played that at all?
I've played the first probably 60% of Until Dawn twice.
Okay.
But I haven't actually beat it. I'd like to, and I was intending to finish it before Man of Medan, but we had the perfect semblance of a group who was ready to play at the time, so we just jumped right into it. Now, I think we both kind of had an interesting, slightly different experience with Man of Medan, because I played the version where it's the couch co-op and everybody is assigned a character.
Yeah, that's a cool way to play.
Whereas, sure. And that was a new thing that none of the other games in the genre have kind of implemented. Yeah, no,
like I recently played, just to talk about Until Dawn for a second, I beat Until Dawn late last year. Me and Ash were kind of playing it. We were playing it together basically, but I had the controller and was controlling the game. But we take turns, kind of like, okay, the next choice that comes up, like that's your choice, and then I do the next one, and then continue on from there, and kind of played it together that way. But I think what the modes they've introduced into this one are really cool, and they expand on being able to play with others, right? Like you were saying.
Yeah, that was one of the big aspects that really drew me to Man of Medan. I mean, I like this sort of genre of game just in general, but my previous experience with playing part of Until Dawn and even with the Telltale games that I've played in the past, I've always played them socially. And one of the main aspects I really enjoy is when you have to make a decision, you always have a very strict time limit. It's, you get like 10 seconds to decide two very opposing decisions, and you live with the consequences of that. So when you play socially, one person's got the controller and everybody's chiming in like, do this, pick left, pick right, and the person with the controller ends up either it's unanimous and it's easy,
right?
Or they panic and pick one. So this Man of Medan, playing as everyone is assigned a character, still has that, but it's ultimately up to the character at the time to make that decision, which was kind of nice. So,
right.
You sort of got that veto last choice.
Yeah, exactly. So there's 5 characters in the game, and you were playing with a group of 5?
We had exactly perfectly a group of 5.
Yeah.
So we all got assigned different characters. If you've played the game, I ended up being Brad. He's sort of the wimpy, nerdy guy with the glasses.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I like that guy. I think he was all right. I mean, I would say, just like I played it differently than you. I did not play that mode. I just played, like I said, I was controlling every character. We were going through the choices together, but I was in those panicked moments when it was, you have a split second to choose and whatever, or any of the reflexes, quick time events. Like it was up to me to pull them off. But so you were Brad, hey? Wow, Brad. That's the one thing I'd say about this game. Like when you said you were Brad, it took me, even though I just beat it a couple weeks ago, it took me, or not even a couple weeks, like maybe last week I beat it, but it took me a couple of minutes to conjure up like, okay, who was Brad again? Just to, get into the story and characters a little bit. Like I don't think this game is quite as memorable as some of the others as far as the characters or the story went, personally.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I enjoyed it, I think, largely due to that social aspect, and it's just, it's a really brief game as well. It didn't, kind of overstay its welcome. So I overall had a pleasant experience with it, but I agree that it doesn't really stand out as, having done, aside from having some interesting mechanics, it doesn't stand out as having really excelled in any particular area, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. And I felt like it was an interesting game in the sense that the story was actually pretty cool by the end. And it became like, I wanted to know how it was going to conclude once I got that far. But I think that the little intro sequence where there's a little bit of lighthearted fun going on with the characters and you're just sort of learning their dynamics and their relationships together. I think it didn't do a good enough job of making me care about these people enough so that at the end of the game, I didn't feel as impacted by like, oh, I guess she's dead now, like whatever, Until Dawn, I feel like I was more attached to those characters the way that the game was written, and maybe that was just the setting or something, I'm not sure. But I don't know if you had a similar experience with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of hard to tell. Like my perspective is a little bit skewed because I associate each character with a specific person.
Right.
So it kind of made those moments more meaningful because it wasn't just, oh no, you were killing Brad. It's like, you're killing me. Don't kill my character. And there were some moments, especially early on, where there'd be 2 characters in a scene together and one person's controlling their playable character, but another character's heavily involved in that scene, and there were some stressful moments and some yelling across the couch like, don't kill my character. I don't know if that's something that was possible to actually happen, that a character, we only had 1 death throughout our game.
Better than me. I had 3 people.
Oh wow.
End, yeah.
And like you said, the name's escaping me, but it was the rich guy who was sort of funding the adventure. He died, was our only death, but it was on his turn to play.
Right.
So I'm not sure if it is possible to kill someone else, but it definitely gave you the impression that it was, and that was the biggest cause of stakes or stress. But that was sort of an artificial thing imposed by the dynamic of the group.
It's
and
unknown, right? You weren't sure if you should be worried or not. Yeah. One thing I felt that was really weird about the game, and I don't know if you had a similar experience because you played a different mode than me, but neither of us played online. And one of the cool things you can do with this game is you can actually play online with someone, obviously not in the same room, and your scenes will happen at the same time. because a lot of the games, the scenes will be happening at the same, or as I understand it anyway, be happening at the same timeline. So you might have a 10-minute scene with your character, and then the next scene is supposed to be happening at the same time as that other scene. So if someone like slams a door or something, you can hear that when you play the next scene as if they were happening at the same time. And if you were playing online, I think it would be cool because you'd be like, oh, that must be like, Kate must be over there doing something. I can hear her, right? But if you're playing on the same console and you don't have that experience, I found that it was a bit tough to follow the timeline sometimes. And I don't know, like there was one scene specifically, I don't want to say because it's a bit of a spoiler, but one character, something happens to them and they come through this door, and I sort of saw it twice because it happened in the next scene as well. And it was a bit like, wait a second, like did this happen before or was it after? And I found it a bit jumbled like that. And I don't know if you had any scenes that did that for you.
Yeah, I think I know what scene you're getting at, and it was kind of, the pacing's a little bit strange at times. And I found as well, specifically paying attention with the different characters and playing it the way that I did, was that not all of the characters get an equal amount of screen time.
No, I feel there's a couple in particular I feel like get a lot, like the girl who's the boat captain.
Yes.
Whatever her name is. I feel like she's like a third of the game as you play as that girl.
Yeah, and there's almost one character that kind of seems like the main character as well. So that was sort of an unfortunate thing playing the dynamic that we played, because it felt like some people got to play a significantly more of the game.
Just arbitrarily because they happen to select.
And it doesn't tell you that when you pick the game. It just sort of gives you like all the characters in a brief like 2-sentence description of who they are and what they look like, and you just assign your name to them, and it was pretty arbitrary.
I wonder if depending on the choices you make, because I think we've only beaten it once each, right? Like I wonder if you make some different choices and maybe other characters become more prominent or anything like that too.
I would hope so, because I mean, like this wasn't a full price game, but it was decently expensive, I think, for the length of it.
Yeah.
So I think to compensate, the idea is that there is quite a bit of content, but you're playing multiple times and you're going through the story and experiencing different options, which leads to different sequences.
Yeah.
Which personally, unless it's a game I'm really very, very heavily invested in, I will play it once and then YouTube those other situations.
Yeah, same with me, especially for something like this, which didn't, I mean, I think it's obvious the way we're talking about it. Neither of us are like super high on it. I enjoyed playing it. I'm glad I finished it and everything, but I wouldn't say like it's drawn me back to go and re-experience any of those different endings and stuff. Like I'm way more drawn to go back to say Detroit or even Until Dawn from the same, Supermassive did the same, that game as well. And like that game to me, I would probably be down to play that again at some point and make some different choices in that one. But this one I don't think did the same, it didn't compel me the same way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good summary of it. And I don't want to be too harsh on this game. I really enjoyed playing it, and I like how they've integrated multiplayer into it. And I'd like to see more games do the same thing, and this genre kind of, become even more mainstream than it is, although it's trending that way. And I don't think it's a bad game, but it definitely doesn't stand out. And coming off of the prowess of a game like Until Dawn, which has been maybe like 4 months since I played that first half, and it's kind of on my mind, like it's a game I want to finish. I'm excited to see where it goes. Like both times I've played it have been very different experiences, and I consider that game to be like a really well constructed game that really excels at what it sets out to do.
Yeah.
And I think Man of Medan is fun, but maybe just isn't quite at that level.
It's interesting too, because this is supposed to be an anthology collection, right? Like the Dark Pictures anthology. And this is the first entry. And I think they've already announced something like they're going to have 6 or 7, maybe it's even more than that. I can't remember, but they've already slated themselves to be making this collection of, short stories like this. So it's kind of, I feel like I'm still interested in the anthology. Like I'm going to check them all out, or at least as long as maybe this is a blip, right? This could just be like, maybe a lot of people like this and it's just the story didn't click with me or something, And because one of the things I really like my favorite part of this game is the host, the guy in that room. I don't think he even has a name, but he's like the guy that between each chapter will come back and he'll say like, oh, you've gotten yourself in a sticky situation, haven't you?
Yeah, I wonder
what's going to happen next.
It's always like a little like disappointed and sarcastic towards you.
But I like that guy a lot, and I'm interested to see how maybe some of these games, if they connect at all, or like what his role in the games are, or or like what the reason he's telling you these stories is. I think that's going to be a cool overarching narrative to maybe some of these short stories like Man of Medan was.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be really neat and would elevate all of them, because it is such a cool thing. And I really enjoyed that aspect, but I was expecting more from it, because in Until Dawn, when you have those pause sections and you speak to the psychiatrist or whomever it is in that game, he sort of gets you to do these exercises, and what you say to him influences what happens when you go back into the game. Whereas in this one, it was just sort of brief interludes where he spoke to you, but you didn't have any agency. Yeah. So it would be cool that maybe if instead of him affecting the anthology or the one that you're currently playing, what you do in Man of Medan maybe like affects your next part of the game, because he's tying you as a player to all of these different stories. So that would be really cool.
That would be cool. Wow. We'll have to wait and see. I feel like that's not going to be the case. But
it might be a little ambitious, but it would just be really neat.
I feel like the most you'd get out of that would be like you're partway through the next game that comes, and then he's like, "Oh, the first one didn't turn out too well. You better start making some better choices here." You know, I feel like he might connect like that.
You're right. He might sort of just comment on
like
it.
Reference you did a shitty job or something the first time.
Right. He might just berate you as you go.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's I don't know. It's fine, but there's just better. Mm-hmm. That's all I'll say about Man of Medan. Yeah. What else have you been playing?
Well, I've got one other game I'd like to talk about, and this is a very brief first impression. I've only played about an hour because I'm still finishing Persona 5, so this is my post-Persona treat.
Hey, now I feel like you're gonna beat Persona for next episode, just to say.
I think so. I really tried for this episode, and I wanted it to happen so much, but it's just not quite. The ending is a little bit longer than I anticipated, so that will be coming soon. But I had a little sneak peek. I started actually the first hour of God of War.
Great.
Which has been on my list.
This brings a smile to my face.
I've been wanting to play this game for so long. I've been so excited about this game that when it was up for Game of the Year award, and it was up against Red Dead Redemption 2, which was a game I was playing at the time and thoroughly enjoying, and I really thought it deserved Game of the Year, I voted for God of War because I could just tell from the limited gameplay I'd seen and everything I'd heard about it, and my experiences with the series in the past, that it was just going to be a game that just ticked every box for me. So it got my vote, even though I hadn't touched it. That's awesome. And after playing the first hour, I'm confident in my voting decision.
It's fucking awesome, that game.
It is awesome. The game is, first of all, the game is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Now you've only played, like you said, the first hour then, right?
First hour.
I feel like at this point you can spoil whatever you want out of this first hour, because the game's a couple years old. Like, if you've had any interest, I feel like,
right.
I mean, you've probably waited the longest to play this, so you're the last of the party. You can talk about whatever you want.
Okay. Well, this is your official warning. Skip ahead like 10 minutes maybe if you don't want to hear any God of War related spoilers. But I've made it to the first kind of like big boss, like your first fight with a stranger, who is obviously going to keep cropping up throughout the game. And that,
I won't confirm or deny that.
Well, I mean, you don't have to. He's going to show up. But it was, oh my God, it was so incredibly cinematic. And like, you expect that going into a God of War game, because
they always have those cool, even the old ones have those cool zoomed out camera shots, and
and it's just such a visceral game. Like, you feel it every time that like you're fighting the weakest enemy in the game and Kratos rips him in half, and like it's just gory.
Or just the way the axe connects sometimes.
The way the axe feels, like they got that perfectly. Like, that axe animation sells the entire game on its own merit. Like, you physically feel it. It has such a neat weight to it.
You remember, like, that actually throws back to our last episode, or one of the first one, actually, when I was talking about my favorite weapons in a game, and you can see why people have that opinion now, right, of how amazing the axe is.
It's so incredibly cool, and like, it's neat too to use it for puzzles as well as with combat, and like, it really sort of fits into like a style, and like with the skill trees, like I can see myself sort of maybe specking into that a little bit. There's a lot going on in the game, but like, it just gets down to, it's a game that like people stopped in the house to watch me play, because it's just so cinematic and just such an absolute joy to watch. Like, every fight, like, you fight for a bit and the combat is fun and responsive, but then it's never too long until you're in some little like cinematic scene where he's like chucking the stranger around, and then the stranger is like punching you into a wall, and then you go back to your fight for a minute, and then like something else ridiculous and like over the top is happening, and it's such a spectacle.
It is. And I think one of the things it was praised for when it came out that was really unique was the camera, right? The way that it never cuts. Like the whole game, the camera will never cut away from Kratos, or if it never cuts, it can sometimes swoop away from him and show something else, but it never ever once, like the action doesn't break. And I think that really contributes to that feeling, because the cutscene will happen, then all of a sudden, before you know it, the camera's swung back around right behind him, and it's close behind his back again, and you're already controlling Kratos without any transition.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's very seamless. It takes you from one piece to the next piece, like very, very organically. And it's really interesting what they've done to sort of write in those scripted beats, but also like have you feel like you're playing through them all the time, and you have a very strong agency as Kratos. Mm-hmm. So it's great. I think the story seems like it's going to be fantastic. I've got a bet going on with myself to think that this might be the first game to ever make me cry. So I'm interested to see if that comes to fruition. But the dad-son relationship is really interesting. We don't get to see a lot of softness from Kratos.
Mm-hmm. It was really a reboot of his character in a lot of ways, because before he never really had too many emotions aside from, I'm going to kill you, or like, even his family was murdered and all this crazy stuff in the first couple games, and you never really even see him overly sad. It's always just rage and like destruction. Yeah,
that was actually an interesting point I thought on for a little bit. Like the whole original trilogy is started because Kratos' family dies, and that's what kicks off his whole journey for revenge and to fight the gods, and it extrapolates from there and gets really out of control. But it starts because of his loss of his family, but it's not really explored overly well, and Kratos isn't given a lot of depth. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this game, it starts in a similar kind of way. His wife has died, but because he has that son to interact with and to kind of like have as a foil for his character, I think they're going to be able to explore that in a lot more of a meaningful way. Yeah. There's a scene, and I can't remember if it's the second or the third God of War, because they all sort of have blended together over the years.
Well, it's been a long time since those games have come out as well.
Yes, it has been quite a while. But here's a scene, and he's with Pandora, that young girl, and he's sort of rescuing her from like a sequence or somewhere she's been trapped. I can't remember exactly. But she's this young character, and he's very soft towards her. And I remember thinking that sequence stood out a lot because of how Kratos interact with her so different than all of the other characters that he comes across.
And you're like, this guy does have a human side of some kind. Like, you just don't ever really see it.
Yeah, exactly. So this has brought me back to that Kratos, and I feel like they maybe use that as a template, or maybe that kind of inspired the story for this game a little bit.
Right.
But it's super neat. He's like, he's a harsh dad. That would be a strict.
I know. You grew up being a pretty tough kid, and he was your dad.
You'd be a pretty tough kid, and like, I have a lot of empathy for the poor son Atreus. He's like, oh, it's a lot of pressure.
So do you, like, how many skills do you have right now?
I haven't actually upgraded anything.
Oh, okay. I can't quite remember how the first hour goes.
Yeah, it's mostly just been tutorial. I think beating the stranger is what separates you from like tutorial section to now, like, okay, you're sort of in control, and we're going to teach you things as you go, but like, you're in the game now. So I think next time I play, I'll probably get some stat increases and stuff. I mean, I look through all the menus because it's exciting, but
you're very close. I won't say anything beyond like a little bit past where you are after you beat the stranger. Something happens, and it's nothing major, but it's just like something happens, and then the game expands in this way that you're not expecting, and you're like, whoa, okay, like this is what this game is now. And then you kind of realize what you're in for, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Everything's kind of like ticking all the boxes just like I thought it would. The combat, I feel, is the only thing that's maybe surprised me a little bit so far. It feels good, and I'm enjoying it, but it didn't feel like how I thought it was going to. And it's interesting, there's some, like, it's very tactical. I know some people have compared it to like more modern action games, almost like a Dark Souls, where you've got your dodging and your parrying and like a lot of flexible options. And it's, you know, it's tight and it's actually quite difficult. But what it was really neat to me that I didn't know ahead of time and going into it was it kind of still keeps its hack and slash roots while incorporating the new, more modern system. Like, there's a lot of times where you're dodging, but then when you actually, it's your turn and you're attacking, you sort of do get those gratifying, like, hack and slash kind of, like, combos as well in the middle of the combat, which is neat.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's like, it's not really like Dark Souls, but it's also not like a hack and slash, you know? It's a really good middle ground between, you can't just button mash, but you also don't have to be so perfect and whatever, like in a Dark Souls. So I think it's a cool balance. Yeah,
it's a neat blend of the two. I like that it's been modernized and updated, because I think while I really enjoyed the first two games, the combat's probably what dates it the most.
Yeah, and like games have evolved, I think, since then, you know.
Yeah, you want to be like more tactical as you're playing games now, as opposed to, you know, you go into every fight with the exact same approach. So I like that, but I also like that it's sort of like stuck to its roots a bit, and it still sort of emulates that kind of like over the top God of War action that's always been in the series.
You're expecting. You just, some of the things in this game are so violent.
Yes, so
it's great.
Anyways, I'm super excited to play more. Look forward to that in the future.
Yeah.
I will try not to spoil things as I go. I'm sure this is the only part that will get greenlit for spoilers.
We'll see. But well, I'm really happy you're playing this. You know, I think it's one of the pillars of PlayStation first party at this point now, and so you're gonna really enjoy yourself.
Yes,
I would say.
I owe it to all of you and to myself.
That's cool. You know, I'm happy you're playing it too, just for the selfish aspect. Like, it's been a couple of years since I beat it now, and I get to relive it now through like hearing you talk about it, which is cool. I'll
make sure to give you all the updates.
Cool.
But while we're waiting for that, why don't you update me on what else you've been playing?
Yeah. Oh, what a transition! Wow, look at that.
Gotta make up for earlier for my nostalgic memories.
Well, I mean, a couple things. Still playing through Final Fantasy VII. I don't have a lot to say on it because I'm still working my way through. I think I'm just over halfway done the game now, so I've slowed down a little bit. I've honestly just been really busy, like, you know, working on trying to get this podcast going, and work's been crazy and all that stuff. So I'd like to have been further by now, but I'm hoping to really power through it over the long weekend this weekend and get Final Fantasy VII done by the next show. So hopefully I'll have, my final thoughts next episode on that. But I'm still really enjoying it. I think I've come to terms with the fact that I'm not going to be completing all the side quests, at least until the post game, if I choose to go that way. Some of them are cool, but I'm kind of just, you know, going through them, and if I'm not instantly drawn to the story of whatever that side quest is, I'm just leaving it for now. And other than that, all I'll say is that I just did a very iconic scene the other day, which has to do with Cloud's clothing options. Very, a spoiler-free thing to say unless you played the original or whatever. That was really cool to experience. I really liked the way that scene unfolded. And there's some really crazy, unique boss fights in this game. Like, one of the things I just fought, maybe if you play, we'll do a spoiler segment on it one time or something, or I'll tell you later. But the boss was just so unexpected, and it wasn't like something you'd really have seen before. And I think that this game is constantly surprising me in different ways. Like, there's like rhythm dancing sections which I have to tap, like quick time events, and it's just really bizarre. And I didn't realize that these kind of things were put into the original. I thought it was more just a classic, like, you know, RPG with just the stuff you'd expect. But it seems like this game has a lot of really quirky, weird little scenes in it that are just out of nowhere. And I'm really enjoying those. And it's one of the things keeping me going the most is like, I wonder when the next weird little thing is going to happen that is completely unexpected. Because you expect to go through and like get your party member, and then you expect to fight a boss and whatever. But some of these other things are just really unique. And that's one of my favorite things about it so far. The other thing I will say is that I really like how the characters kind of come and go in your party. Like, it's not like once a guy joins your party, he's with you and that's it. Like right now, Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, and Aerith, right? There's the 4 characters. Mm-hmm. But it's always like, oh, you know, Aerith left the party now, so now it's just Cloud. But then this person shows up, and then they leave the party, and then 2 of them come back, and like
right, and because they have their own lives going on outside of what you're doing,
or like, you know. I've had just Cloud for a significant portion of what I just played, and I think that's a really cool way to keep it fresh and just switch up how you're playing, and it is more realistic, because if you think about some RPG, if you're going on this big adventure, you're not always going to be in the same location as these same people that are part of your team, you know? Like
Right.
realistically, they're going to be leaving you.
Right. And especially for a lot of games, JRPGs in particular, you get a character that joins you at a very specific time in the story for a very specific reason, but 20 hours later you're doing something totally different, and they're just with you because now you're best friends.
Their life is now like dedicated to helping you, and
yeah,
they can't
they're
leave.
like, I'll go wherever you want me to.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess some of those characters would, but I mean,
yeah,
it's just cool because it's got some, like, it's not a mechanic you see often. There's other games that do that, but I like stuff like that makes it feel even just minorly different than other games.
And then it's exciting when they show up again, and they always tend to do so at
a dramatic moment,
yeah,
or
where
whatever,
you really need them.
Yeah, like, oh shit, that guy's gonna be tough. Oh, thank God, like Barrett's back or whatever it is. But yeah, that's that. The other game I've been playing quite a bit, as I know last time I talked about Fortnite and how that's been kind of a social experiment for me as far as hanging out when we all can't get together. I've only played Fortnite once since that episode, so I think it might be close to over already. But
wasn't quite as successful as your last go.
Yeah, just the way it is. But another game kind of having this similar effect to me is Dauntless, and I've been playing that a couple times since we last recorded. And this game, for those that don't know very quickly, is basically a free version of what Monster Hunter World, I think, is the newest one. What that game is. Now, I've played Monster Hunter before, and I got into it with a group of friends. We played it quite a bit, but it's one of those games that once you fall off of it, I think Monster Hunter is very tough to get back into, because it's got such complexity in its systems and the way you need to build your character and do your stats and craft items and everything. And as much as I like that game, I think it was just a bit dense, and it's just something I don't see myself going back to. And so, because my friends also liked that game, we decided, hey, you know what? Let's check out Dauntless, because it's basically like a lighter version of what Monster Hunter's offering. You can, play it for free, jump in, jump out, do your thing.
Right. Now, I played a bit of Dauntless, but it was in its beta. Is it still in beta, or has it fully released? No, it's
fully out now. It's at least from what I can tell. And we've been having a lot of fun with it. And in some ways, I actually quite prefer it to Monster Hunter, just because there's no... I mean, I don't care about the story of Monster Hunter, right? Like, the story didn't do anything for me. And one of the problems with Monster Hunter was that if you wanted to play with it with your friends, you would have to do the story portion before they could even join your game. So you'd have to sit through this cutscene. Your friends would just be like sitting on their couch waiting for you, and then you'd have to call them in after the cutscene. But in Dauntless, there's not really a whole lot of story, which is fine. And you're just in this hub world, and then you go off on missions, and you can all just be in the same lobby and do your thing that way. We had a little bit of trouble setting that up because it's an Epic published game. So a couple of us had Epic accounts from playing Fortnite or whatever else, and two of my friends didn't. So getting each other all worked out on our friends list and everyone to be able to invite each other to parties was a bit of a bitch. But now that we have it set up, it's pretty good. And honestly, it's just been a lot of fun to go in and kill some monsters, And it's a really easy game to get into without having to commit too much time to it, because the armor sets you get, again, to go, it's hard to talk about this without comparing it to Monster Hunter.
Yeah, it's really an elephant in the room when this game comes up. It's
it
very heavily inspired by Monster Hunter, and I think, to their credit, they don't shy away from that. They very much seem like they're very upfront about it. We love Monster Hunter. This is, another avenue for you to enjoy a game like that. We've taken a couple of our own unique spins on it. Have fun.
Exactly. And so this game just gets rid of a lot of the BS that Monster Hunter is. Like I said about the cutscenes, and then also in Monster Hunter, you also have to track the monsters, which I think some people really like that aspect, right? Oh, look, there's tracks there. Oh, look, it scraped by this wall and left some goop. And that stuff is cool, but the problem is once you've fought the same monster 3 or 4 times, it becomes a bit monotonous.
Right.
And so even though that's cool the first couple times, I think overall Dauntless is better in that sense, because you just find the monster pretty quickly. You don't have to, sometimes Monster Hunter can take you 15, 20 minutes to find the thing. Whereas in Dauntless, you kind of arrive on the map, and then you all run in a different direction. When one of you eventually runs into the monster, you shoot a flare up into the air, and everyone else can run to your position, and you just start fighting it. And I think that's really cool. But the other thing that's really good that I appreciate about Dauntless is that it doesn't punish you for not having played as much as the people you're playing with, because all of the armor sets the armor set from the first enemy you kill can be upgraded to be just as good as any other armor set in the game. They're all equivalent as long as you level them up. So, I mean, if you know, my friends I'm playing with go and play while I'm podcasting here right now, and then I were to join them later, I wouldn't be like weaker than them just because they might have just a different looking armor set. But every fire enemy you kill will have the same level of armor, just a different appearance.
Yes. I heavily appreciated that when I played it as well, because one of the things in RPGs, especially ones with very cool aesthetics, is you get different armor and new armor and you want to try it out and you want to look really cool. And one of the main things about these kind of games, the big draw is that when you hunt the monsters, you use their, well, I would love to say this more nicely, but you use their corpse to to create like your weapons and your armor.
Yeah, and it looks
so
cool.
It looks cool as hell, and that's a big draw because like you're decked out in your cool like bird armor, and then you go in and you've got like cool like armadillo armor, and it's all really neat. But then you often run into issues with games like this, but just RPGs in general, where you get this new armor set and the stats are amazing, so you can't justify not using it, but you look like an idiot. So I really like that you can kind of specifically like sort of play like a fashion game with it as well.
Yeah. You don't have to be a worse character just because if you like the look of the first enemy you kill or something. You can just use that armor.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's exceptions, like you don't want to use certain types of armor when you're fighting different types of enemies.
Yeah, and some of them give you different stats. Like one armor might give you more like agility, whereas another armor gives you a little more defense. But like, and so you might kind of feel pressure to spec into one of those options, but at least it's a different option versus like this one's just outright better. There's no reason to ever like count one out.
There's no armor that's like these have the same defense, but this one gives me more health and the other one doesn't. Like they're all, you can justify using any armor you want, and I think that's great.
And it's the same with the weapons as well. It attributes to that as well, where like, you know, they give you slightly different versions of each weapon, but it's a preference choice. It's not just a stat check.
Yeah, totally. And just to finish off my thoughts, like it is a free-to-play game, so there obviously is like the season pass and the microtransactions and the let's pay for shaders type of deal, but it's not very intrusive. Like we've played probably 15 hours or so, like since we started playing. We just play once or twice a month, right? But I like that it's not really in your face about buying things over and over, and it makes it feel like a premium experience even when you're not actually having to pay. And like that's the kind of thing I actually would be more inclined to give money to, rather than some game that's constantly asking you to spend money everywhere here, you know.
Right, exactly. Because you're enjoying the game and you want to support the devs and the team making it. You don't, you know, just feel like they're, you know, it's like a cash grab.
Exactly, yeah. So, Dauntless is cool. Probably will play more of it. I don't know if I'll talk about it a whole lot more on the show. It's kind of once you've spoken about it once, it's kind of like, unless there's a big update or a new season or some big expansion or something. But I recommend. I mean, I like it. I think that if you're interested in Monster Hunter, it's a great thing to try. And then if you really get into that, Dauntless, and explore all that it has to offer, then Monster Hunter would be a good stepping stone up if you're really into it. But honestly, like I like this. I have just as much fun as this with Monster Hunter, right?
I think it's good in its own merit.
It is.
Let me know when you play next.
I will.
You've never invited me to play.
Yeah, well, I have a squad of 4. You know, like we're very exclusive. We have a clan tag and everything, except for some reason one of my friends can't accept the invite to the clan, so we just say he's not good enough to join. I have no idea what's going on there, other than like maybe he doesn't have an epic thing and you have to have epic. I don't know, whatever. But
what's your favorite weapon?
I use the guns actually.
Oh, I use the guns too.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I use the guns. The guns are cool, but the only problem I'm having with them is that to upgrade them, it takes different materials than the standard weapons.
They're kind of the atypical weapon in the game.
Yeah, and so my guns right now are actually stronger than the weapons the rest of my guys are using, because I've just, for whatever reason, I've killed enough guys where I can upgrade my guns to be a higher level. So I'm a little bit ahead, but then other things I'm behind on. Like I was behind for a while when they all had higher level weapons, whatever. But it's my choice. You pick your poison, right? I choose the guns. I live in that world. That's me. But yeah. Anyway, that's what we've been playing for this week. We'll be back after just a short break with some news, so don't go anywhere. All right, everybody, welcome back to the second segment of today's show. And that means, yes, it is time for the news. We got an update, actually, to something we talked about. I think we spoke about it last time, the Last of Us leak, and you know, how that information was all coming out about all these spoilers. And I think the rumor at the time was that it was a Naughty Dog employee that was unhappy with like the working conditions or something like that. But obviously, it's been a couple weeks since then, and we've gotten some more information, which is that this is a Kotaku article. Stephen Totilo wrote about it. You can go check the website if you want to read more. The Coles Notes basically, though, is that there was a person on Twitter named Pixel Butts, which instantly is very credible. If you take the name out of it, though, it kind of is. They were saying that what actually happened was that there was a hacker that somehow had a method of using Amazon servers to get some passwords for Naughty Dog Studio through games like Uncharted 3 and The Last of Us, the original, and that somehow those passwords allowed them access to like some early gameplay files of The Last of Us 2.
Right, which I think were dated in April, beginning of April.
I mean, relatively recent, right? And somehow, so this backdoor kind of code breaking strategy this person used allowed them to access these files, and that's how it got out. It actually wasn't a Naughty Dog employee.
That's right.
So,
it was someone at home with a bandana on in a dark room.
Yeah, with green numbers going up and down the screen and
I'm in.
Whatever. Yeah. So I think that's a I mean, it sucks that the hack happened. It sucks that for some reason they didn't realize that there was this
like a breach,
this breachable piece of code that Naughty Dog had, and unfortunately it led to the leak. But I think on the positive side, at least it wasn't like an internal problem that the studio had, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think like not that there's any positive outcome from this, but I think it's at least
it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, it's less devastating than it being someone directly involved.
Yeah.
And coming from sort of like an outside source.
Yeah, I mean, people try and do this kind of thing all the time, and
you get all people data mining and hacking, and it's horrible and really still ruins it for everybody. But at the same time, I gotta say it's very impressive how they did it.
I think so. I mean, yeah,
not
I don't
to
know
condone
about,
it.
like,
yeah,
I don't know anything about this, but
not to condone what they've done in the slightest, but like that, to even think to access it through an older game is like. That's really clever.
I agree.
Put your talent to better use.
Yeah. There was some good news about The Last of Us 2, though, which was that since we recorded last, I said last a lot there. It's kind of weird. That's the name of the game. So what can you do? There was a trailer for The Last of Us, though, that came out recently, and I guess obviously you watched this and everything. Story trailer didn't show a lot of gameplay or anything, but I think like, what did this game really have to do to sell people more? You know, like it was just another really cool trailer, brought the hype back up for the game even more, and I couldn't wait to play it before. And after seeing the trailer, I feel the same way. Like this game just needs to be in my hands.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad to see that the studio's still moving forward with it. They're going strong. They're acting like it didn't happen, and it's not deterring them. And I think that. I
mean, what choice did they have, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think ultimately this is, you know, it's going to be water under the bridge, and the game is going to. Come out to resounding success. Yeah,
I mean, we probably said it last time, but like the majority of people that don't follow the industry as closely as even, you know, you and I are not even going to know there was a leak. So it's really only the people like checking IGN every day and going on Reset Era and all that are even going to know. So overall, their marketing hasn't changed. Wouldn't expect it to. And hopefully everyone wants to play this game when it comes out, which obviously they will.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it was a great trailer. It looks like it's going to be an absolutely emotional roller coaster.
It probably didn't mean much to you since you haven't played the first one, but...
Well, okay. It's Attack Me Day. Hey, I'm playing God of War now. That's true. I'm making my way through my list.
That's true. So let's move on here. We got another... there's some really big PlayStation news coming out today.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic week.
This is easily the biggest news section we've ever had in one of our shows. It is only episode 4, of course, but... All right, so for the next story, let's talk about a bit of PlayStation branding, okay? A couple days ago, I think it came out that, now this is an article from Christopher Dring. It's all over, I guess, anywhere you'd find it, though. I'm sure PlayStation Blog had it up there as well. But this is kind of unveiling the new PlayStation Studios brand that's going to launch with the PS5 about a new opening cinematic, very similar to what Marvel does before their movies, where the pages flip and all the characters show up and it's kind of like, you know, the opening credit almost to a movie. And PlayStation has a very similar new opening animation where it shows some characters and then it zooms out and it's the PlayStation symbols, and it has this cool music, and it's going to play before all the games from PlayStation first party studios. What's your opinion on that?
I think that this is the kind of thing that's going to give you chills when you start a new game.
I had chills watching it, to be honest with you.
It's incredible. It's so evocative. And I think comparing it to Marvel, I mean, is you can't not do that. But it is such a good comparison because it's the same thing. You go to the theater and you see that familiar cinematic, but it's been updated slightly with some new characters from the new movies. And like, you know exactly what you're getting into. The music plays and like you have a physical reaction to it. And I think this is the exact same thing after having played a few more of, like the first party standalone games. And then you play that next game that has that cinematic playing at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And like, I think you feel absolute chills. It's so exciting. It's subtle. It doesn't overstay its welcome, but it is really, really clean. And I think they nailed it.
They did a phenomenal job, and it's totally like a brand awareness thing, right? Like there's some Marvel movies that I'm sure a lot of people who aren't really Marvel fans went to see because they watched the first few, and then, or maybe there's even some Marvel movies, just to talk about that for a second, where people went to the theater and they didn't, maybe they're an average movie watcher, doesn't even really follow the Marvel stuff, but they watched the Marvel movie and they saw that intro before, and they'd be like, wow, this is Marvel? Like, I didn't know that, and I think that could happen to a lot of people too, especially for video games, where let's say someone goes to, their local GameStop, buys God of War on their PlayStation, but they're mostly like a casual gamer, right? They buy God of War, they put it in, and this cinematic plays for Sony Studios, and they really like the game, and they might begin to associate that brand,
Yeah, there's an interesting psychological aspect to it, and I think Sony's probably very aware of that. But it really gives you the impression, even if it's subconsciously, that what you're going to be playing is a part of something bigger, mm-hmm. and that it's connected and it's sort of in a legacy instead of it's just a game that you've picked up.
Yeah.
And I think that will go through people's minds to a degree, and like it will make you more excited for what you're going to be playing based off of just watching some like a 20-second start up to the game. Yeah,
well, exactly. And a lot of games, they'll come up with like, oh, Sony Interactive Entertainment presents, or it'll have like this black screen. It'll mention Sony, but it's not really evocative of emotion or very exciting compared to even just like, Unreal Engine shows up at the start. And like, you're like, okay, yeah, Unreal, like whatever. But this is like a very attractive thing to look at, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think that it'll just hype you up to play these games. It's something as stupid as watching this animation, but I think it'll work.
It's hard to explain just exactly why it's so exciting, but it is. Like, I've got a really big goofy smile on my face just thinking about it, because like it's exciting, and I'm passionate about these games, and like.
Yeah, it's almost like watching the the intro theme song to your favorite TV show. Like The Office theme plays, and everyone will hear that and be like, oh, great, The Office. Like, people will see this and say, oh, great, like a PlayStation.
Yeah, exactly.
And level of quality of the game you're going to play.
It's going to be like in trailers and games, like they're going to, any sort of like presentation conference that they have going forward. Yeah. Like, I think it'll be a really good, like, unifying little bit of music to get stuck in your head. It's great.
Do you think, like it says in the article again that we're kind of basing this discussion off of, that it debuts later this year on PS4 and PS5. Like, obviously, The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima are coming out before that time, and I think they've even confirmed, don't quote me on it, but they said like this opening cinematic will not be on those games.
Yeah.
Do you think because they want to wait for PS5 to release before they start implementing this, or?
It's hard to say. I think maybe it's convenient to come out with the new generation as sort of a statement, like, this is us going forward and look at all the, the things that we're going to be doing in the future. But I think it probably relays more to that it's just too late in the development cycles for those games, and like. But
is it though? It's just a little credit thing to put at the front.
That's true. I guess how difficult would it be to slide that in? But like.
Yeah, like they patch whole levels into stuff sometimes.
That's true. But I mean, at the same time, like, why don't they have it in yet? Like, maybe waiting until 5 is a nice thematic thing to do, but at the same time, like, both of those games definitely qualify for having the cinematic. It would be a shame not to put it in if there wasn't a technical reason.
I couldn't really wrap my head around that. I mean, it's such a small detail, but at the same time, like, I think it's just a branding thing with PS5. But the real question here about this, PlayStation Studios is: do you think the characters shown in the cinematic, is that indicating some of the upcoming games we haven't heard of yet? Because not every first party characters in there. I think there's Ratchet and Clank, there's Sackboy, Aloy.
Nathan Drake starts it off.
Yeah, Kratos is in there, but like there's a lot of characters in there, but some of them, like we haven't had a Little Big Planet game in quite a while. And Media Molecule just released, they're doing Dreams right now, and so I don't think we'll be getting, unless a different studio is doing like a game for Little Big Planet. But I just think it's kind of interesting they have some of these characters that haven't really had a recent game in there. Yeah,
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in the meeting. As to when they're picking who is going to be a part of it. Like there were definitely some obvious choices in those characters, like you can't not include, right? Like Nathan Drake starts it off. Of course, Nathan Drake's the first character. He has to be there. But then, you make an interesting point, like Ratchet and Clank show up, but like there's no Crash.
Well, Crash isn't really for them anymore. But.
Yeah, I guess so. But they have like a couple kind of like older classic characters, like you mentioned, and then a lot of the newer characters. So, I mean, maybe we'll get into this a little more in section 3, little
spoilers,
foreshadowing going on. But it definitely did raise a few questions, and it might be interesting to see how they go forward. And it'll be interesting too to see what characters they add over time, because as their library expands, the cast of characters in this cinematic should grow with it. Yeah,
like I think they're just going for recognizability, right, over time. Like people, like Ratchet and Clank hasn't come out for a while, but I think it's quite clear that you associate that character with PlayStation. And also, like, I think Ratchet and Clank and Sackboy were smart to include, because otherwise, if you take those two out, it's very much like, look at this realistic-looking human. Look at this realistic-looking human. You know, it's kind of like brand diversity.
That's a good point. Give a little bit more of like a diverse cast of characters.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, this is a generic brown-haired man.
Yeah, exactly. Like Kratos would be the most standout person in that point, and he's still just a dude, you know. Like he is a god, and he's whatever. But just the lay person looking at this animation, like he's just another tough-looking guy.
I got Aloy as well. She's a good character. But I think you're right. Like they're diverse characters, but maybe not diverse as like a sack of potatoes. Like, whatever the heck's supposed to be inside him.
Yeah. Anyway, it's gonna be cool to like get to watch that anime. That's such a nerdy thing to say, like getting excited for a little animation.
Right?
Like,
Yeah, we're not getting excited about the game that's gonna play after. We're getting excited about the 20-second intro
true, though.
to
like,
the
game. I love going to see the Marvel movies too, and like I would be lying to you if one of the things I get excited for isn't seeing that thing flash up on the theater screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know? It's like a pure dopamine hit right before you get started doing something. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. Well, we saved the biggest story for last, Kate, and why don't you take this one?
Yeah, so this is a really big story actually, and it came out as of the day that we're recording. Just
May 13th,
earlier.
We're recording right now in the evening, so this is just like fresh off the press.
Yeah, so this came out maybe only like 5 or 6 hours ago, so it's really new. We're still kind of processing it, but we will do so with you. We've got an Unreal Engine 5 tech demo that came out from Epic Games and Unreal Engine unveiled it today. But what's really neat is that it was played off of a PS5 specifically.
Yeah.
So they're kind of going over some of the resources and the new tools that they're going to have for the newest generation of gaming moving forward. And I got to say, like, if you haven't watched the video, it's about 9 to 10 minutes long. Yeah. Pause this right now and go watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look at before you hear our opinions or whatever, if you can.
I would highly recommend it. It is really phenomenal. But basically, they're introducing these two main new design concepts that they've got. They've got Lumen and Nanite. So Lumen is, as they explain it, a dynamic global illumination tool. So it has to do with the lighting in games and having realistic dynamic lighting that responds realistically to the environment and what the player is doing. And then Nanite is what they describe as a virtualized geometry that's going to let artists import film quality art and assets into the Unreal Engine. So their big example of that was they had a statue that they'd put into the demo that I guess in previous engines, the developers would have to specifically make to fit within the engine, and it would be very difficult to make that asset transition from the designer who created it to actually working within the context of the game.
Yeah.
But now with Nanite, it's supposed to integrate those a lot more seamlessly, which means that artists can make higher quality models and renders of things, and it'll fit into the game with the correct lighting and the correct dimensions.
it's more like a I mean, I don't know shit all about programming or any of these terms or any of this lighting or sound or whatever business. Like the impression I got was that it'll be a lot easier for the designers to create something in whatever program they use to create it, and then just slip it on into the engine, and it just works a lot easier, and there's less background stuff to make it work, or that you don't have to decrease the quality of the image or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the takeaway, and obviously this is a very oversimplified view of things, but in layman's terms, how it's supposed to work is, it makes it easier for the artists and gives a higher quality final product. And then the point that really stood out to me is that they talked a lot about video games being very much static environments. So things are happening kind of on a set sequence a lot of times. And while it looks gorgeous in game and it's not always noticeable, they really have to make these sequences and what you're visually seeing in the game follow a certain set of rules that like let it happen correctly. But with these new assets, what they're saying is that there will be more real-time things that happen based off of the player's action, such as like with a light source, depending on where you're standing, it's going to be shining correctly on your character, or if you are in the way of something, it'll put the correct shadows where you were. And they also use the example of rocks falling
and that was
and
cool
breaking,
to see.
and oh my god, it was gorgeous. But again, it's like depending on how you interact, the rocks will fall and kind of break correctly in terms of like the geometry and the physics of how that should be simulated in in real life, simulated into the game, instead of them having to like just render a sequence of rocks falling. It happens realistically and naturally now.
Or if you were to climb a mountain a certain way, maybe you would knock more rocks than someone else, and they wouldn't fall the same way for every person or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly. And then as you're climbing, it's windy, so your clothing is sort of swaying in the wind realistically, and sort of things that we've been trying to incorporate, and they've been doing like largely a really good job. But it's just, this seems like the next step of advancement to making them just look even more like comparable to movies in real life. Yeah.
I think what's going to be really neat over the next little bit, obviously this looks phenomenal and amazing, and it's just, I mean, my jaw was on the floor while I was watching what this looked like. It'll be interesting to see exactly how accurate a lot of these systems are implemented, because obviously, like, I don't think it's realistic to set our expectations like every game is going to look like this now. Like this was very much although it was played on a PS5 and it was like a playable sequence of like a game that they'd created for this demo, like it obviously was created to show off these features in a very particular way. And I don't think it's realistic to expect like all games will look like this, at least for the first little bit of next generation. But just the fact that this is possible and these type of advancements are something that you can work towards, I think is really cool, and will expand like what next generation can be.
Yeah, exactly. Like obviously it's gonna, be large. Things are largely up to the design philosophy of the people who make games and their artistic direction. But you are limited to a degree by the resources available to you, right?
Right.
So having these higher quality resources, it's going to be amazing to see what people are able to do with them. And yeah, obviously this was, a demo and something definitely made to show off. But in an interview here, Kim Library of Epic Games says that I think a lot of people will ask, oh, is the demo real? But the demo was grabbed from the back of a PlayStation 5 development kit. An HDMI cable went into the disc recorder and played out real time, no editing, no tricks. That's what comes off the box.
And that's the coolest part to me, right?
Yes.
Because they just proved like that this level of game is possible on the PS5. So now it's, like you said, it's up to just the developers and the artists to create things that look like this with what they've been given, right? Because Epic's only just giving them the tools with the engine. It's up to the designers. And like, why would we not expect eventually, even if it takes them a couple of years to learn the nuances of this new technology, like there's no reason to expect eventually we're not going to get games that do look and perform this well, and I think it's interesting too, like I wouldn't say that the graphics were on face value too much different than like the PS4. Like, I mean, obviously they look great, but like, I don't think that's what we're looking at. I think it's more so we're looking at those things like how the rocks fall differently, the light filters differently, like those types of enhancements, which which like graphically, if you were to compare screenshots, I don't think would be as impressive as if you were to compare like the way the game performs, you know? And I think that's more so like where this gen is going from the impression that I've got.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of focus on the subtleties and the nuances that maybe are not the most eye-catching thing when you first look at or consider the aesthetic of a new game, but really play into like how you subconsciously take it in, right? Like it's all about the subtleties of the way a character moves. Like you can't always pinpoint exactly what's making it look unnatural, but our brains are so used to seeing the way that people move and the way that things interact with nature and how wind will shake a tree and things like that, that even though you don't consciously think about it, your brain expects and knows what that looks like. Right. So when it isn't happening at the same level of realism, it happens
slightly different in video games.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Even if you can't put your finger on or acknowledge exactly what's unusual about it, you do acknowledge and understand that something's strange and it's not quite right. It's the same reason why some CGI looks kind of weird in movies, and why it's really difficult to make like a CGI character fit in with real actors. Like it's just not quite at the exact same
off,
level,
right? And
right?
I think that'll still be the case, but I think this engine is a step, and
yes.
like other engines that are going to come out, like obviously not every game uses Unreal, but it's one of the most prominent tools out there, and I think it's just a step towards realism. Yes,
exactly. Like this is the next big step, and it's going to be like, I'm excited to see what this brings. I can't imagine what things are going to look like even 5-10 years with this sort of technology just coming out on a somewhat like regular basis, but it's insane. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. There's a million YouTube videos out about the Unreal 5 engine.
Yeah,
go find it and watch it 15 times over and repeat. And then collect yourself off of the floor.
Do yourself a favor. There is one more story today. It's a very brief one, of course, but there is, unfortunately, we're recording a day just before this comes out, but they're doing, I think it's the first state of play of the whole year, if I remember correctly, unless they had one really early. But tomorrow they've announced that they're doing a state of play focused specifically on Ghost of Tsushima, to show off some gameplay for, I believe, pretty much the first time as far as like maybe an extended gameplay segment of that. So we'll definitely be covering that on the next episode. It'll be a couple weeks old by then, but hey, we got to talk about it. So I'm excited to watch that tomorrow. But that's going to do us for the news for today. So we'll be back just after a short break with our predictions for PlayStation for the rest of 2020. All right, everyone, welcome back. We are here for the third segment of today's show, and for today, that means we're going to be making some predictions about PlayStation for 2020, and I guess some of yours, you were saying, are a little bit beyond 2020.
Yeah, 2020 and beyond.
That's fine. We're playing it fast and loose. So, yeah, these are just the predictions. I think it would be cool to start at the beginning of the year and kind of round them up at the end and see how we did, but because we're only releasing in May, we'll do our best to start from now, and
maybe we get till May 2021.
Yeah, maybe we'll make it different. Who knows? But I guess we'll just go back and forth, take turns, and start with our predictions. So go ahead, Kate. What's your first one?
So I've got my first one here. Is I put down there's going to be a lot of remakes and remasters.
Yeah.
I think that's just a trend. I think that's a pretty safe prediction. That's a trend right now in games. There have been like countless remakes and
Tony Hawk
remasters
coming.
Oh my god, I can't believe it.
That's the second callback to that episode.
That's
the first
right.
episode.
Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, we had a question in our interview quizzes in the first episode, and one of them was, what game do you just not understand why people like? And I make an effort to be very open-minded and optimistic, and even if it's not for me, I understand why people would have interest in something, but like, fuck those Tony Hawk games. They're so boring. I don't understand it. I just don't. I see maybe an hour of dicking around and then the value's completely gone. Mm-hmm. But anyway, yeah, just maybe at time of recording this, it was yesterday, and the Tony Hawk game got the
hilarious.
remaster.
I laughed at that too. It made me think of you for some reason, even though you like never played that before.
Yes.
But anyway, back to your prediction.
Back to my prediction, which, this is relevant. It counts for that. But like I said, there's been so many, like countless remasters and remakes coming out. I think we're going to see a lot more of those going forward. I put a hopeful maybe note in here that we could get a Persona series port or remaster, like a collection.
All of them? Oh, that would be cool.
Like a collection coming. I think they were well received and well liked, but were sort of niche games.
Yeah. I think 4 was the first one that really became like very popular, right?
4 became a little bit more and generated some more attention, especially outside of Japan and here in the West. But 5 has been such a massive commercial success that I think it would be really nice. And especially the older games are kind of difficult to access right now as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to go back and play them, to be honest.
To properly play Persona 4, you want to play the Golden Edition, you have to have it on Vita. Like, yeah, they're kind of hard to track down, so it would be a really nice quality of life to get, those put in.
Wow, that's ambitious, but I like it.
And I've also made a note here too, after watching that cinematic opening that we discussed earlier. I've made a note specifically for Ratchet and Clank well. Like they came into that opening as we specified, and I was looking into it. There was the last Ratchet and Clank game that came out was in 2016.
Yeah, and that was
a remaster. So the last game that actually came out as a unique game was 2013.
Yeah, you think they could maybe remaster, they could even do a whole original trilogy, like toss that PS4 one back on and
exactly.
Whatever.
I see the whole original trilogy coming out and maybe even a new game in the future. So
nice. That'd be cool. Okay, well, my first prediction, I just thought I'd get it out of the way. I mean, I think one of us, maybe you even predicted something too, but it's got to be about the PS5 reveal, right? Because we still don't have a date. We still don't know when we're getting information. I think there was a rumor about late in May, but to have a reveal event, but that seems quite soon. Without any kind of, hype. So I just put down here, I picked a random date. I said the PS5 will be revealed on June 17th. We'll obviously get like an announcement about that, and then there'll be a big event on June 17th. It'll be announced that the price is $499 US. So it'll be, kind of right at the top of the price point people are predicting. And finally, that now this is kind of the part that I think is a bit unrealistic, but I'm being hopeful, is that it comes with a year of free PlayStation Now. To try and get people into using that service. They try it out for the first year, get to play a lot of titles on their new system. So if just in case the launch lineup isn't super robust, that they can go back and check out some older titles or whatever they put on there. And then hopefully as people begin to like the service and it expands and people continue to subscribe after their trial. So hopefully, we'll see. But that's my prediction. June 17th.
June 17th. Okay, we'll put that in my calendar, see how accurate you are. My second point is sort of similar. I've put down that, we'll be getting the reveal. I didn't put down a specific date, but I put down by July. So that gives me a little bit more flexibility than you've got.
Yeah. So if it's after June 17th, you win.
June 18th is what I'm hoping for now.
Yeah.
But I've also put down in here that I think they're going to hint at a sequel to one of their big IPs when they do so. And that will lead into like a exclusive version that you can get of the PS5. So it'll be like the Horizon Zero Dawn 2 version.
Like a limited edition.
Like a limited edition launch would be really neat.
Xbox just had that Cyberpunk Xbox Series X that they announced. So that could be a case. I don't know. So my second prediction is that at their reveal event on June 17th for the PS5, there will be a trailer for God of War 2018 sequel.
Okay.
Which will be shown. There'll be no gameplay footage, and it'll be given it'll just say 2021 at the end of the trailer. Okay. But no other information. It'll just be like a short cinematic, showing something that happens in the sequel, but a very short little tidbit of information. Okay.
That's fantastic. I hope ours go together perfectly, and the God of War one is the exclusive version that comes out, because that's the one I'd like to buy.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'd love a controller with just Kratos' face and beard just like front and center.
Hey, it better be better than better be better. It hopefully will be better than the collector's edition for the other God of War, because I didn't think that one looked too great.
No, it didn't.
Personally.
But you know what is really cool? They have those like light bars on the front now, or those little like subtle blue. That could be the red that goes across Kratos.
Yeah. Okay. Or like half red, half white.
Oh yeah, that'd be super cool. Okay, well, taking it in a totally different direction, I've got here for mine, and this is maybe more of like probably not 2020, but somewhat early future for the PS5.
Right.
I think
within maybe the calendar year. You'd say?
maybe the calendar year or somewhat early, and at least to be announced. I think there's gonna be a new music style game, like the next generation of the Guitar Heroes or Dance Dance. With the PlayStation 5, and the hardware of it, they've talked about how much emphasis they've put on the audio and sound components, and I think that would be really neat to have like kind of like a flagship game come out that really utilizes the audio aspect.
Interesting. So like what would it be, do you think? It's not guitars then?
It's not guitars. I don't know. I mean, I spitballed a couple ideas and they were all super, super dumb. So clearly I shouldn't be in control
where's
of this.
Parappa the Rapper at?
Parappa the Rapper might come back. What was that game that we talked about the other a while back? I think it was off podcast, but it's that game where like it was that rhythm game where it was those men in suits and they're like super ridiculous.
It was Elite Beat Agents.
Elite Beat Agents. Yes, it could be like an Elite Beat Agents sort of like rhythm game.
Interesting.
But I think they're gonna do something though. That genre kind of like
it's for the casual kind of consumer who might.
It's great and they're tons of fun and like they kind of like have weird surges of like popularity. Like you get really big spikes, like Guitar Hero was big and then it kind of died down and like
still coming out on like the Wii or whatever.
Yeah, and they seem to like come in and out of trends. So I think maybe this will be the next big like 5 months of like it being interesting.
Quality, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I definitely wouldn't have thought of that. So let's move on. My number 4. We're already on number 4. Wow. So mine is that we just saw the DualSense controller released a little while ago. And they made a big deal about a few features, but one of them was that the share button has now been replaced with the create button. And so that apparently, I guess, is going to give us a lot more creative freedom as far as like, posting screenshots and doing all that kind of thing, or maybe, different kinds of creative things you can do right on the system. And so my 4th prediction is that because Dreams is very creative in its own sense, like as far as custom content and like making your own stuff. I think that game works really well with what the share button might become, as far as like, I made this content, now I want to share it online. So I think that what's going to happen is that and also Dreams, like I think it came out and it was very popular at the start, like within its first couple weeks, a month of release, like you see lots of cool creations online, but these days I think it's died off quite quickly. And so
I think it is still very, very heavily utilized with a very small niche type of person, but it's not in the mainstream.
The same buzz, and it's definitely not like an A-tier game for PlayStation. And for that reason, I think I don't have the sales numbers in front of me. I probably should have looked them up, but I don't think it's probably making them a ton of money, So my prediction here is that Dreams for PS5 will be made free to play for anyone with a current PS Plus subscription. And so they'll have a lot more people getting on the platform for free. Maybe you don't have a lot of games at launch, but Dreams can easily come over, be part of your lineup as long as you have PS Plus, and that way they'll be getting more people to create content, more people to play the content, and it can kind of hold up the PS5 before it gets a lot of titles released for it, And that then it also works out with the share button being like very, very much encouraging people to like share their dreams and share what they've created.
Dream big, like I always say, dream big, get big.
You do say that all the time. Yeah,
I do.
Clear quote. But just so you know, that's my favorite prediction that I.
I think that is my favorite prediction out of mine included. I think that's fantastic, and I really like that for the aspect as well of like, just the individual person who's made a game and wants to share that and has like a potentially massive audience of people that can, play their game, give them feedback. And I think that encourages people to maybe pursue game development more seriously than they otherwise would have. And that could be like the first kind of like taste of what that lifestyle might look like.
Yeah. And Dreams itself, by all accounts, is like quite robust compared to other like Little Big Planet or whatever had come before. And I think like it's not the type of thing that people will really go out and buy because they're unsure, but it's the kind of thing that if it was free, like you dabble in it, right? And so and just to clarify too, that was prediction number 3, not 4. I miscounted.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, we've I was like, I don't know what the heck I've done here, but I'm glad to know it was you, not me. Okay, well my next one is shit in comparison, but here we go. I've put down that I think this is another safe prediction as well, because we're seeing it's just a trend I'm pointing out, but we're gonna get a lot of games with like season passes and
Oh,
content passes for PS5, and I think that might even translate into getting some like proper MMO for consoles.
Really, yeah.
Like, well, I know we've had the
Well,
Destiny,
like the Division and Destiny
Yeah,
and those, but they're all
and, like,
shooters, right?
Destiny was very successful, especially Destiny 2 came out, and I know that while it had a bit of a rough start, is pretty highly acclaimed now, and they've been successful. Anthem was another attempt at it
God.
Maybe we shouldn't.
I honestly was like hyping my friends up to play that because I thought it looked so cool, and then it came out and I just looked like an idiot.
It was a little bit of a bust, but I think with the success of games like Fortnite having those like constant content packs that you'd buy in a season, and like kind of like a living, breathing game that's constantly evolving, I think we'll see sort of some of those game styles that are exclusive to PC right now kind of transition into console as well. And it'll be a lot more of like maybe a social platform.
Yeah.
And different styles of MMOs that.
Interesting. Like PlayStation exclusive ones or just more stuff coming to PlayStation?
I think both. I think it would be, there's definitely like a lot of them it'd be nice to have them cross-platform as well.
Yeah.
Especially with that social aspect. You can play with any of your friends. You're not restricted, but I think it would be smart for PlayStation to also kind of recognize that this is important, and that's another avenue for them to kind of keep pushing we're the company with all the amazing exclusives.
I like it. I think that's probably the safest of all of our predictions. For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's definitely a strong trend.
Okay, so my next one is a little bit more out there. So Bluepoint, right? Bluepoint is not a Sony first-party studio. It won't have that brand new Sony PlayStation Studios Marvel-like intro to it. But I mean, they've been working with PlayStation quite closely, and they recently did they did the Shadow of Colossus remake for PS4 remaster. And so I think there's actually quotes that they're going to have a game ready pretty much at the launch of the new console, and it's going to be for PS5 and everything. And so a lot of people are predicting different things for it, but my prediction here is that they've actually a lot of people think it's going to be Demon Souls, which would be really cool.
Just stop right there. Please let it be Demon Souls.
Well, we'll see. But my prediction, I went a little bit of a different way. I'm saying that they're going to reveal a reboot for Siphon Filter, which was a, tactical kind of stealth espionage type game back on PS1. I think they had some other games later, but it was really big on PS1, and we haven't seen it for years. And I think that it's a franchise that's needed revival for a while. A lot of people get really excited to talk about it, but it just hasn't really ever, it hasn't happened. I think it finally happens on the PS5, and it is one of the launch titles for the PS5, one of the exclusive launch titles. And, I think it'll do reasonably well. Don't know if it's going to be a huge hit, but I think Siphon Filter is the one.
Okay. Interesting. It's no Demon Souls, but it would still be very exciting.
I think Demon Souls, I would have gone with it. I just wanted to choose something not quite, the obvious one.
Yeah, you got to kind of go for those
from online, you
kind of got to go for those big predictions, which I have done for my last one. But I will paint you a small picture.
I like it.
So, I don't know if you guys have watched it, but there is an amazing Castlevania TV show.
Hell yeah, there is.
On Netflix.
Great show.
It is a fantastic anime. I think a new season's supposed to come out soon.
They announced there's going to be another season. I don't know when it's coming out. But
anyway, super exciting. So there's a rumor that the same company that made that is going to be making a Devil May Cry anime.
Ooh.
Which I think would translate very, very well. Okay. Continuing on, flip onto that. Apparently, Netflix has made a deal to be making a Resident Evil TV show.
Really?
Yes. And in addition to that, we have Tom Holland, who's going to be starring in an Uncharted movie. He's going to be playing young Nathan Drake.
Yes.
Put that all together.
PlayStation Cinematic Universe.
And you get a PlayStation Cinematic Universe.
Oh my God.
They've got the opening 20 seconds now, just like Marvel. And they can play that before every show and movie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
You know what? It is incredibly ambitious, but it's not as crazy when you start to think about it. Like, there are a lot of video game movies and TV shows coming out recently. I think like the success of Castlevania and The Witcher and like Detective Pikachu and even the Sonic movie wasn't anywhere near as awful as people.
Yeah, I actually like the Sonic movies.
Yeah,
as I say.
like
I'm not a Sonic fan really, but like I like that movie.
yeah,
I think
it
was
ended
good.
up being perfectly acceptable, and like video game movies were always known to be awful in the past. Like you went and watched it anyways because you wanted to see your series.
You knew you were setting yourself up for like failure.
You
right?
wanted to see your series on the big screen, but you knew it was going to be awful, and you walked out of the theater like, you know, like feeling, I guess, validated that you were correct, but also extremely disappointed that it was awful. But they're actually getting talented writers now that are making good content, and I think even The Last of Us is going to be getting.
Well, like Neil Druckmann's working on that Last of Us show. Like it's no joke as far as like what they've said so far.
Yeah, exactly. They're getting a show, and like maybe not all of these universes are easy to fit together. Like maybe Ellie and Kratos don't really become friends at any point. Like that's kind of a hard sell. But like I think this might be the next phase for them and something they're looking towards expanding, and I think like it's a really cool thing that we could have going forward.
Hey, crazier things have happened, man. You know, like we'll see. I don't know. I won't hold my breath for that one though. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. So my last prediction is a little bit more down to earth. So a lot of people are predicting that the big PlayStation 4 or 5 exclusive game will be Horizon 2. I think that's like, if you were to ask a lot of people, they'll say that's the one that's most likely going to be coming out for launch, right?
I think it's a safe bet. When I was looking at the games for the prediction of like what would come out for the exclusive version, Horizon was my big guess. Yeah,
Horizon's one of the popular ones, and I'll say like my prediction is kind of two parts. I think my prediction is that this was aimed to be a launch game, but I think that I'm going to say it'll come out still within maybe a month of launch, but not quite at the exact time as the console, just because I think that the whole COVID and virus thing has delayed things a little bit more than Sony would have liked. You know, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer, just a few weeks to play Horizon. But the main prediction here is that I think that they've mentioned before, don't quote me on this, but that there's going to be potentially like a multiplayer aspect to it where you can play the campaign with two people. I think I've heard that before.
For Horizon 2.
For Horizon 2, yeah, for Horizon 2. Or maybe it's just speculation, but whatever it is, my prediction is that is indeed true. There is multiplayer, but it's not in the campaign. It's going to be an online battle royale with where you can play like the single player campaign, or you can play this online mode where you can bring two people in, and it's kind of like the combat of Horizon. I was thinking about this actually because a couple people I know recently have been playing through Horizon, and when I played, I got that game when it came out, and I really didn't like it. It's one of the few, exclusive PlayStation games that I just didn't really get into. I found the combat was just really slow and wasn't really what I liked. It's more like setting up traps and waiting around and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think, like personally for me, I'm the outlier. Like most people really thought that was a great game, but I think that type of combat style would be really interesting for like a slower paced battle royale.
Like something a little more like calculated and cautious, and like set up traps and like wait for your opponent to kind of
there's big guns and stuff too, but I think it would be cool because not only would you have like other players hunting you down, but there'd also be the mechanical monsters kind of in that world as well. So maybe you team up with another partner of two because you're all getting attacked by this big monster, and you sort out the other players afterwards, or just a unique twist, because at this point there's so many battle royales where they're all different, but like really they're all kind of the same when you boil them down in a lot of ways. So this would at least, it would be like battle royale, but also with the monsters on the map, and it's up to you if you want to kill the players, or maybe you make an alliance to take on a big monster and get some rewards, and then try and kill those people afterwards, something like that.
Okay, interesting.
Just a change to the formula.
My first thought is I'm not sure if that could topple Tetris 99, but it's definitely an interesting idea.
Hey, people like Tetris 99.
I'm being 100% serious. Tetris 99 is the best battle royale.
I don't know. Apex Legends, man.
I don't know. Tetris 99.
We'll see.
You've clearly never T-spun someone, James.
Dude, I suck at Tetris. I'm so bad. I can't even like come close to winning that game.
No, it is so incredibly hard.
It's tough. But anyway, I think that Horizon could be. Is it realistic? No. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Like, will it have online? Maybe, but I don't think. Like battle royale, I just think would be a cool genre. And also, like, PlayStation doesn't have an exclusive battle royale, right? Like for a long time, PUBG was exclusively on Xbox for consoles. PlayStation has never had like that that type of experience, right, for Battle Royale. So I think that it's such a popular genre right now that I think they would want to have their own version of that on their console to launch to try and sell the system.
Yeah.
And that way Horizon is like going to sell it to people who are really interested in the single player campaign of the first one, but also like people might check it out.
Yeah, and
getting the console, right?
Smart putting it in a game like that as well, because so many people will be buying it for the single player experience, and then I might as well try out this new mode in it, and then that's another reason to stick around for a while. But it's interesting. I'm trying to think of another game that would like an exclusive that would work for a battle royale.
Right? Yeah. And
it's hard to think of one that kind of comes closer.
I mean, for PlayStation, I can't really think of one off the top of my head that will work better. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't, like God of War, no. Uncharted, no. Last of Us. Like The Last of Us, maybe they could have some mode where, you know, you go and kill some zombies together, but that's not really the same thing. Last of Us is so story driven.
Yeah, it almost feels like kind of inappropriate to put it in.
Cheapen the world, you know, to put that there.
Okay. So. Well, if you guys can think of one that might work better than Horizon, please let us know something we might have overlooked. And I'm going to be thinking about this all night.
I know. Well, we'll let you know next show if we have any other thoughts and suggestions for that. But hey, if you want to get in touch, let us know at CANDS pod on Twitter. But until next time, we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about some more PlayStation goodness. See you then.
The intro and outro music for Circles and Squares was produced by friend of the show, Matthew Chan. Interlude music is from Scott Gratton of the Free Music Archive. Our channel art was created by @unreasonable on Twitter, and our brother Alex is the designer of the Circles and Squares logo. Thank you all for listening and supporting the show.